That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Tin Can, the third film directed by Seth A. Smith, a Canadian. And it premiered at the 2020 Sitges Film Festival, also North American premiere at the Fantasia International Film Festival. It is being released August 5th, 2022, courtesy of Epic Pictures.
Yesterday.
What
is that B-52's lyric? Like tin roof rusted?
Tin roof rusted, yeah.
Directorial debut?
Third.
What are the two other ones?
Lowlife in 2012 and a 2017 film called Crescent that I believe is well regarded.
You haven't seen either.
I haven't seen either. Same screenwriter as well on those, Daisy Spidel.
This was an interesting movie. We can get into it, but the basic story is we live in a world where there is some sort of like fungal, like virus or something that is affecting people.
Specific to the east coast of Canada, and it's called coral.
So we focus on a particular pharmaceutical company looking to find like a cure, a vaccine, treatment, something. And one lady in particular, her name is...
Fret, played by Anna Hopkins. She's a parasitologist.
So it seems like she's getting close to finding something when all of a sudden she is bonked over the head and taken somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then she wakes up and she's in some sort of like pod.
Like a cryostasis
Kind of like
chamber.
the movie Oxygen.
Oxygen, yeah. I think Buried with Ryan Reynolds is also a reference of the feeling that's going for it.
Sure. I was thinking Oxygen because she's hooked up to like, she has IVs in her and she's intubated and all the things.
But running out of oxygen.
But in this movie, she's not.
No.
So she wakes up and is able to sort of like get herself free, and then she's making all this noise, and she realizes there are other people near her. Okay, we find out that while she was dating some guy who worked at like a cryogenetic place where like rich people go to get their bodies frozen for the future.
John.
His name's John. She finds out that maybe he's having an affair on her. Right?
Well, it seems like these are her flashbacks or memories, and which we get to when she's pounding her way out, and it segues into her, like, him having sex with a colleague.
He, I think, is responsible for her getting sort of kidnapped because he's trying to protect her. Mm-hmm. She's able to break out of the pod. She overtakes one of the guards who is there. It's also, we'll get into it, but she infects her man with this virus, which we'll talk about separately. But he ends up dying. And then the film ends with, after she's gotten out and overtaken one of these guards who are wearing like a gold suit.
Yep.
It seems like she's going to kill the other people who are being held captive in the pods because this is not a way to live. The end, basically. That was a terrible description. But that's kind of how I felt watching the movie. It's languid and told out of sequence.
Yeah, there's a lot that's implied. The details that we are fed might seem innocuous at first, so if you really weren't paying attention, the last kind of half hour of the film seems a lot... It's like bonkers. But I think I enjoy thinking and talking about this film more than actually watching it. Because I actually went back and rewatched the last 45 minutes just because I was a little...
It was hard to stay focused because the pacing is so slow that...
It's paced like a nightmare. I had read somewhere somebody comparing it to Soviet sci-fi cinema, and I think that is very much apt, but this is like the B film version of a Soviet... Like, this is nowhere near Tarkovsky or even, kind of one of his proteges trying to emulate him, like Konstantin Lopushansky, who, have these very intriguing apocalyptic narratives that are really difficult to decipher and you have to pay attention to. But this isn't at that level, but there are a lot of really interesting things going on there.
It's important to know this was filmed before COVID and written well before COVID. Mm-hmm. So I think that's interesting. Like, it feels, knowing that, it feels, the concept is interesting. So, I'm just going through my notes. What's her name, Frida? Fret. When she's in this pod and she's making all this noise and she realizes there are people next to her, and she's explaining to them how to remove things and open things, like namely a vent. We see one of the guys who I thought looked like Willem Dafoe. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's one man who's next to her who we can see his face through the vent.
Is that the benefactor Wayne? Is that Michael Ironside?
I don't know.
Michael Ironside is a very notable genre character actor.
He's the one who tells her, like, don't worry about me, I just like watching.
Oh, no, that's not him.
Yeah, I thought he looked like Willem Dafoe. I thought it was funny that she, again with the pacing, there's a pretty long scene, like almost 5 minutes, where this lady is pounding against the pod she's in and ultimately tips it over like a porta potty, which is what I thought, because the bottom of the pod is filled with water, which is where her bare feet are. There are some interesting details, although the timing of how long she's been in there is odd to me, because she says she hasn't been in there long enough to experience like muscle atrophy. But then we see that she has like leg hair and underarm hair, which I don't know if that's normal for her. And then the water, like the fluid she's standing in, there seems to be like
Detritus.
Debris in there. I don't know what that was. Foot skins, maybe. But anyway, I thought it was funny when she flipped over the porta potty, because then no one comes and checks on her.
Well,
like
no.
nothing happens for a while.
Well, and then that's where it becomes odd, because then she overtakes one of these other men in gold. And the gold is important because she's discovered...
It has antifungal properties.
Yeah, via that ring that looks like something you put on a sink pipe that she's wearing around her finger.
Well, and speaking of the gold people, I thought they looked like
C-3PO.
C-3PO.
Well, because it's hard for them to move around, and they're inside. There's another bubble layer of them inside that they're perspiring against, and it looks like the thing over their mouth is like a cut-in-half microphone.
Well, that's a good point, because my next note is that they don't seem very like capable in like managing themselves in the suit, and then we get a scene where they open up one of the pods, and it looks like there's a baby or something wrapped in a pod.
One of the people's child has like morphed into this.
So the way the fungus works is it seems to cause a person's body to mutate, and it's sort of like half bio, half metallic or something. But yeah, there's a scene where they open up one of the pods, and there's like it looks like maybe a baby wrapped in a cocoon, and the way they're removing it, and it just felt very awkward. Like it's the first time they're doing this.
I think they can't move around. They're inhibited by these suits.
That was an interesting choice. I'll save this note for the end, I guess, for what I wanted this to be. So when the main lady is having these visions, we understand that like her man might have cheated on her. So then she wants to get revenge. So we see her pull out her man's penis
While he's sleeping.
While he's asleep in bed, pulls out his penis. Then she takes a syringe filled with this virus and injects it directly into his ureter hole, or whatever you call that, directly into his penis. I mean, I've never seen that. Well, not in a movie in this purpose, but...
I guess if you do it just right, you're not piercing the skin. I mean, that's like some metal sound shit.
I don't want to talk about that.
It's uncomfortable, but also because like this man did not wake up. Okay. But again, it's jarring, and this film has elements that feel kind of jarring, because it's like a B sci-fi schlocky film, beyond even Soviet cinema, like 1950s American cinema with the special effects for this fungus, which kind of might take you out of it a little bit. But I also kind of grew to like.
Well, let me say what I liked. I think there are some very interesting visuals, especially for something that I'm assuming didn't have the biggest budget. I think the story is intriguing, especially considering it was created before COVID.
Well, because if you think about it, these scientists, right, are about to discover a cure for this disease that's about to become a full-blown pandemic, that it looks like if it is not contained, it will wipe out humanity, is kind of the dialogue that's happening there. And that all gets turned on its head because of this woman's anger and jealousy towards this man. And then they all become, and she ends up killing him, and but first infecting him, and he's starting to become one of these creatures. And their undoing is themselves, which is a metaphor for humanity at large, where it seems like the differential between love and lust equals disease.
Well, getting back to what I was saying, I think what didn't work is the pacing made it really hard to stay engaged there are some scenes that just seem to drag on forever, to the point where this story, the way it's presented, made me feel like this would have made more sense as like a 30-minute short.
I agree. It's like they need one more kind of adventure thing to fill in that dead space, because all of the time, and I think Anna Hopkins' performance is fine, and I actually kind of recognize her from that segment in VHS 94 called Storm Drain. I think she's that journalist where they go into that storm drain and there's that weird creature in there. That was probably the best part of that anthology. But there is a lot of dead space there that's not very interesting. Like, she doesn't have a lot to play off of.
There also isn't a lot of dialogue, and the dialogue there is the sound, which makes sense because a lot of it's like they're in the pod and they're from far away, but it's a little muffled and sometimes sounds a little, I almost thought some of it was kind of funny, like when she's screaming. And so I think if you do watch this movie, you need to watch it with either very high volume or like wear earbuds, because I feel like,
or see in the theater.
Or see it in a theater where the volume's loud.
Because the sound design, I think, is really good, and the score, which was also composed by Seth A. Smith, is also very fitting. I really liked it.
The movie was also broken up into segments, I believe 3. I didn't bother to write them down.
Chapter segments. There's like The Room Without a Door and Body of Gold, I think.
That just, I don't know, for something with such odd pacing, I feel like I didn't need, these chapters didn't do anything for me. So then what I think would have been a better movie is, because it kind of feels like there's a hint of like a revenge story in there.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So I almost feel like this would have been so much more interesting as like a straight up revenge movie, where this scientist who's on the brink of finding a cure or something to prevent like a global catastrophe is distracted because her man's cheating on her.
Well, because that gets back the obsession of love because of lust, and that reminds me of that astronaut that went and drove across the U.S. with the diapers. Like that kind of level of, we're gonna let this get out of control.
Yeah, I think that would have been more interesting. I know part of it seems kind of like, we're making this woman seem like she has no control, like she can't make good decisions. But, aside from that, I think that would have been more interesting. As it is, it just feels kind of like there's not enough there for more than 30 minutes.
But the motifs, I do really like the subtext about, there's a thing about flowers that we kind of get more in the third act, even though there are visuals of flowers in the beginning, and how during their courtship John kind of crushed these flowers by accident and gives her fake fabric ones, like these won't die. And this idea that the tagline even alludes to about how preservation of human life is futile and unnecessary, and we have ruined ourselves, much like we kind of ruin flowers by just picking them, like picking people for our own amusement, but clearly dooming it to death and ending its life source early. And I think that is an overall very interesting theme, and I do wish that it had been in a more easily digestible package, but there are enough things here to like it, and I would really be interested in seeing what this filmmaker could do with a budget. Anything
else?
No.
What would you give it?
3.
I would give it 2.5. It was okay. To me, that's okay. I feel like you'd really have to be in the mood, and you'd really have to want to just pay attention.
And again, I think that me being able to, once knowing what it was, kind of slowing down and also picking apart the small things. But that's a lot of work to ask for an audience. But
well, yeah, because you had to rewatch half of it, and then we watched other people talk about it, like to kind of get a better sense of what we thought.
Again, I'm a person that doesn't mind doing that kind of work, but I imagine most people don't.
Well, I don't either when I'm interested. In this instance, it felt more like I feel like I need a little bit more because I couldn't really put anything together.
Right, because this is also not a film I would probably pull out and be like, oh, everybody, we have to sit down and watch this.
Right.
Like Tarkovsky's Stalker or something, or Solaris. But
also, to me, a movie has to be something where I'm not saying that I always have to want to rewatch it. There are some films I think are excellent that I would not want to rewatch. But this one, yeah, it's like I wouldn't recommend it. I definitely don't want to watch it again.
If anything that piqued your interest in there, I'd say definitely give it a watch. But it was not what I was expecting, which I also like, based on kind of the packaging and these indie sci-fi films that I've come to realize, most of which are garbage. But I don't think this is at all.
No, it's not. Anything else? Mm-mm. Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.